Prologue. Adina. 5 years ago. The biggest man I've ever seen is barreling behind me. Then again, it is likely that I'm exaggerating. Mama always did tell me what a curse it is to be blessed with such an overactive imagination. I would hate to proclaim that he's the largest man I've ever seen if he isn't truly worthy of the title. So, I dare a glance over my shoulder, dodging carts and jutting cobblestone beneath the boots swallowing my feet. Mama said I would grow into them. I'm still waiting for that day. No, that is definitely a giant man. The white mask he wears leaves the bottom half of his face exposed, displaying red cheeks and a twisted scowl between each panted breath. A tangled strand of hair whips me in the face when I turn back towards the street sprawled before me. Several curls crawl into my mouth when a rare gust of wind decides to rush down Loot Alley on its way to somewhere far more important. I lift a hand to swipe at the unruly strands, only to be reminded of the very reason I'm running from an Imperial in the first place. Honey oozes between my fingers, dripping lazily from the sticky bun squished in my palm. I might have gotten away with my first attempt at thievery if it weren't for the fact that I tripped into the very stand I tried to steal from. Unfortunately, it only got worse from there. I then profusely apologized for stealing before spinning on my heel and running off. This got the merchant's attention, then the Imperials, and now everyone on the market street is bearing witness to the scene I'm causing. It's not as though the Imperial, or the king he serves, cares about the overcooked dough I sloppily stole. No, it's the example that he is chasing, the spectacle I will become at the bloody post in the center of Loot. Imperials like their whips, and I like my sticky buns. And, for some reason, the starving girl is in the wrong. Men, women, and wandering children jump out of my path, though most look unfazed by the sight of me hurtling past. Looting on Loot is hardly uncommon. Merchants curse as I weave between their carts, though I shout my apologies at anyone who cares to accept them. This may be the most terrifying thing I've ever done. I mean, attempting to sew a pleated skirt was certainly a daunting task, but the threat that pointy needles pose likely pale in comparison to what this Imperial has in store for me. I glance down at the sticky bun that is, in fact, feeling like its name suggests. What has gotten into me? I shout an apology to the woman scurrying out of the way, likely swallowed up by the sound of her cursing my name. Hunger. That's what has gotten into me. But I don't particularly like being cursed at. In fact, if most of the people yelling in my direction actually got to know me, I'm sure I would make a completely respectable impression under different circumstances. Hair flinging over a shoulder, I peek at my giant pursuer. Face still red as ever, he charges persistently. Well, he's definitely not a Flash, that's for certain. When my head swivels back towards the street, it's glinting silver that catches my eye. The girl stands in my path, staring curiously at the scene sprinting towards her. Silver hair spills from her head, pouring down her back. And if I make it out of this unscathed, I'm determined to find a fabric of the same shimmering shade. I admire her hair until it is suddenly right in front of me. She hasn't moved, and I'm not planning on slowing down. So, without a second thought, I run right into her. Well, technically, I run right through her. Despite my many years of being able to pass through matter at will, the tingling sensation never fails to send a shiver down my spine. I have yet to get accustomed to the ability I possess, a result of the plague that swept through Ilya and formed the generations after into elites. I don't dare look back until I hear a heavy thud hit the cobblestones behind me. I barely catch the Imperial's face hitting the stones before the girl is bounding behind me. "Don't stop," she shouts. not bothering to fight the smile pulling at her lips. All I can manage is a breathless laugh in response as I focus on forcing my tired legs faster. We run until she yanks me down a narrow alley, dodging the huddled homeless. "This way," she orders, continuing to tug on my arm. It's only after slinking down several shadowed alleyways that we allow ourselves to lean against a grimy brick wall, gulping down equally dusty air. She looks over at me, and I look over at her. Something like understanding seems to settle between us, as though loneliness has found its equal. The girl raises her eyebrows at the sticky bun still gripped in my hand. "First time stealing?" "That obvious?" I smile sheepishly. She shrugs. "You would think a phaser would be better at escaping." "See?" I say with a sigh. "That's what I thought. And look at where it got me." There is a stretch of silence before I blurt, "Oh, and I'm not really sure what you did back there, but thanks for your help." She flashes a smile. "Nothing difficult, just stuck my foot out. It's the Imperial's fault for running into it, really." We laugh. It's nice, this brief moment of companionship. The warmth coats my chest when I giggle for the first time in a long while. For the first time since Mama. I raise the sticky bun between us. "Want a split?" She laughs again when I wave the dough beneath her nose. "What, with your sweat all over it?" "Oh, this is nothing," I say, the words muffled by the bite I take. "I've sweat more while trying to stitch up a corset." She looks absolutely distraught at that statement. "Why would you ever need a corset?" "Unfortunately," I sigh wistfully, "I wouldn't, but richer people do." She blinks at me, something brewing behind her blue eyes. "You sell clothes?" My eyes skim down the dirtied shirt hanging from her shoulder to land on the pants bunched at her boots. "Yeah, and it looks like you could certainly use some." I run a hand down her sleeve, feeling the coarse fabric rubbing against her skin. "No, this won't do at all." "Stealing food is kind of my priority at the moment," she grumbles. Excitement bubbles up my throat in the form of a hushed shout. "You steal? Like, steal good?" "Steal good?" she echoes skeptically. "Well, whatever I just did was bad." She is quick to nod in agreement. "So, can you do what I did, but, like, good?" "Anything is better than that," she says with an amused smile. "But yes, I steal good." "Perfect," I say cheerily before sticking out the hand currently unoccupied with my stolen goods. "I'm Adina." She takes my hand, seemingly shaking it just to humor me. "I'm Peyton." "Well, Peyton." I rip the sticky bun in half, offering a smush side to her. "I think we could make a great team." She pops a piece of dough into her mouth. "So, you sew and I steal? We share the money and the food?" "Exactly." I hesitate for a moment. "I mean, unless you have somewhere better to go than the slums." "Not anymore," she says a bit too quickly. "So, partners?" "Partners." I smile before looking down the length of her. "And my first order of business is getting you into something far less horrendous." She huffs out a laugh. "Yeah, because that's a priority." I take another bite of sticky bun, humming at the sweet honey melting on my tongue. "And your first order of business," I mumble between bites, "is getting me more of these."
Chapter 1. Makoto. Her name is on a list of the dead. I squint into the stinging sunlight, scrutinizing every name inked onto the banner. Hers sits among the 8 others, likely overlooked beneath the princes crowning the top. But despite being on the list, our future enforcer will easily evade the death awaiting the other contestants. Because these trials were made for elites like him, not elites like her. My eyes skim over the list once again, recognizing no other names. I've never been one to keep up with which elites managed to wrangle enough relevance to make it into the trials. A shoulder collides with mine, followed by several other limbs pushing against me. Loot is swimming with sticky bodies and echoing shouts of celebration, further adding to the list of reasons why I would rather be anywhere else but the slums of Ilya. It's a struggle to push my way through the crowded street, every inch of it crawling with ignorance incarnate, every inch cheering for each contestant they chose to represent Loot. I push through the crowd, ignoring their celebrations. They have done nothing more than send mundanes and defensive elites to their deaths. And she is one of them. But it should be me who dies brutally, dies alone, dies at all. Chants in honor of the 6th ever purging trials ring in my ears, each word a reminder of what I've done. Nothing. I've spent my whole life huddling in her shadow, hiding from life itself. And now she has been chosen simply because she did nothing of the sort. The people knew her, loved the street magic she performed as a veil, and yet they sentence her to death under the guise of honor. She is a defensive. Therefore, she is dead. And I need to find her. My hands are streaked with coal dust, leathers clinging to my sweaty body as though I'm still hammering steel over a scalding fire. I had worked through the night and was continuing still when the commotion managed to drag me from the shop. I should have gone to see her last night, should have been there when she found out. And now I'm shoving through a sea of people, attempting to find her before it's too late. I scan the packed street, catching sight of a coach rumbling towards the end of it. It screeches to a halt, the horses nearly as impatient as the drivers, eager to escape the slums. I sure as hell know how that feels. I'm shoved forward when the congested crowd begins flocking towards the coach, clustering it as though they're offering free rides out of this shithole. Begrudgingly, I allow myself to be swept forward, managing to catch a glimpse of her climbing inside. An Imperial ushers her up the step, and in typical Hera fashion, she shyly thanks him as though he's not escorting her to her doom. Her sleek black hair is the last thing I see before she's swallowed by the 4 walls, sitting in the belly of the coach. The world seems to quiet, slow its spinning with each shaky breath I manage. I didn't get to say goodbye. My thumb finds the scar cutting crookedly through my lips, tracing it like I had the day my life truly became a secret. A familiar numbness begins to bleed over my body, bathing every bit of me in bitterness. I'm about to turn away, unable to watch her be paraded towards her death. That's when a flash of silver catches my eye. I peer over the dozens of heads dotting the street, watch her walk towards the coach with hair that tells me all I need to know. So, this is the famous Silver Savior. Word of her saving Prince Kai managed to reach even my ears, evidence of how significant she's become amongst the slums. Perhaps I'm a skeptic, or simply the only logical person living in the vicinity, but I'm not entirely convinced by her battle with a silencer, a battle that the future enforcer himself couldn't win. And I know exactly what it's like to be in Kai's shoes. I'm watching her climb into the coach when a hopping figure captures my attention. Dark curls bounce with each attempt to see over the crowd. Her hands are raised, waving haphazardly at the Silver Savior. She's shouting something that looks quite heartfelt, likely a wasted goodbye that will never be heard. I lean over a pair of young women who are chanting terribly off-key to the rest of the street. Squinting, I struggle to scan the girl's face with how persistently she's bouncing. Something about her seems faintly familiar, as though this isn't the first time I've been graced by the presence of her perpetual perkiness. I roll my eyes when recognition rams into me. Oh, I know exactly who this is. In fact, I believe she even made it onto my ever-growing list of reasons to never leave my shop. I was buying supplies from a merchant who was just as eager to take my money as I was to retreat back into my glorified shed. It was with a bundle of leather tucked beneath my arm and a severe lack of pep in my step that I heard the most absurdly bubbly sales pitch. And that's when I saw her, curly hair bouncing with each energetic bob of her head. A plethora of clothing piled around her, while she described what is commonly known as a blue shirt, with about a dozen more words than necessary. I may have said a thing or two, though the details of our conversation were hardly interesting enough for me to waste time recalling now. That was several weeks ago now, but there is no mistaking that the girl currently waving a crazed set of hands down the street is the same seamstress who sells on the corner of an alley. And she's a phaser. I know that much about her. Well, that, and her astounding ability to never tire of talking. I watch her blow kisses to the silver savior, so many that I brace myself to witness her faint. But she does nothing of the sort, leaving me to continue watching the endearing embodiment of her affections for this girl. There is no mistaking the sincerity in each flailing wave and shouted sentiment. This seamstress knows the silver savior, and quite personally by the looks of it, likely enough to do just about anything for her. My mind races recklessly, scheming. A horribly impulsive plan begins to form, one that should likely never leave the confines of my mind, let alone be executed at all. But this just might work. That is typically what one thinks right before everything goes to shit. Then again, one might argue that things couldn't possibly get any shittier.
Chapter 2. Adina. Scraps of fabric are my only company. The whole thing sounds far more depressing than it is, really. This is a very temporary lapse of loneliness. Once pay returns from the trials, because I refuse to believe there is any other outcome, she will be back to sleeping soundlessly on my left. I scoot over at the thought, ensuring there is plenty enough space for the presence of her to sleep peacefully. I refuse to occupy her side, and, instead, reserve it with my pile of fabric. A memorial, if you will. But not in a dead, depressing way. More like an I miss you and don't worry, I'm saving your spot sort of way. The fort is a bit drafty tonight, though that's likely due to the fact that we constructed it from dozens of miscellaneous items at the age of 13. The sudden urge to give our little home a makeover has me far too giddy to sleep. Pay deserves a more fabulous fort to come home to, though I suppose she'll be able to buy half the slums if she happens to win these trials. How remarkable would it be if she manages it? Manages to win what is meant to showcase the elite power, yet she has nothing of the sort. But if any ordinary could, it would be Pay. She will fool them all with her psychic abilities, because if she hadn't told me otherwise, I likely would still believe her act of observance. I burrow into our blanket, my mind buzzing with possibilities. And then I nod to myself, settling on my fort redecoration surprise. This will be my gift to her. I hadn't realized I'd drifted asleep until a ray of sun tickles my forehead. Rolling over, my face finds the mound of scraps to be rather comfortable before the strands have me sneezing. Once my nose has finished throwing its fit, I sit up, brushing back the bangs sticking to my forehead. My sleepy eyes are slow to open but quick to find the spot beside me empty. I stutter from where I sit behind the fort, unsure of what to do with myself. For the past 5 years, Peyton has only woken up due to my perseverance each morning. And maybe a part of me reveled in the routine of it, of being the first person she sees. Though, the task is certainly not for the faint of heart. She's stubborn, even in sleep. With resolve I'd rather not muster at the moment, I managed to get to my feet. Exchanging one oversized shirt for another, I attempt to run fingers through the tangled curls earned from a night of tossing and turning. It's not long before I give up, as I do each day. I've decided it is now part of my routine. After twisting my hair into a messy knot at the nape of my neck, I gather a bundle of clothes into my arms and phase right through the barrier that is our fort. Sunlight coats the tops of crumbling shops as I set out onto loot, its rays creeping down the walls to splatter the pavement. I smile at the sight before silently saying good morning to the shiny star. We've always been close, connected in a way I can't explain. I pass several merchants preparing their carts for the day, smiling at the few who appreciate the gesture. Routine. Again. I've nearly made it to my corner when the smell of fresh dough wafts towards me. My stomach complains loudly at the scent, grumbling about its lack of food. And apparently, my feet listen. They carry me towards the source of the smell while I hug the mass of fabric tighter against me. That's how I find myself standing before a merchant's cart, piled high with sticky buns. The man nods curtly while I smile sweetly, as though I'm not considering anything unlawful. But it's as though the temptation was created just for me. My stomach is insistent, my hands greedy to snatch a glazed piece of dough. I never have been much good at snatching, hence why I've always left that area of expertise to Pei. But she's left me alone with my appetite and no voice of reason. What a dangerous combination. And my hunger is currently drowning out all rationality. So, when the merchant's back is turned, I repeat history. I steal a sticky bun. The honey seeping between my fingers feels like the embodiment of déjà vu. I stare at it glistening in my palm while struggling to clutch my bundle of clothing beneath a single arm. Turning away slowly, I whisper an apology to the seemingly kind man as I step away from his stand. That is when the green pleated skirt I spent hours stitching falls from the pile, landing behind me. I spin on my heel, bending to pick it up before the merchant notices and, "Hey, you got money for that, girl?" I stumble into a run. I'm a terrible person who steals and runs from the consequences. Not that Pei is a terrible person. No, I'm just not cut out for this. My conscience can't condone this sort of dreadful deed. "I'm sorry," I shout as I tear off down the street. "I'm sure it's delicious and very much worth the money I don't have." I weave through the growing crowd, feeling the clothes slipping with each bounding step. Blurry faces watch me race by, one of them partially covered with a white mask. Perfect. I've caught the attention of an Imperial. Just as I had 5 years ago for the exact same crime. I could laugh at my repeated stupidity. Except, Peyton isn't here to save me this time around, leaving me no other option but to run alone and attempt to escape my crime. The Imperial is now in pursuit behind me, shouting orders to stop my sprinting. Forcing myself to ignore his threats, I run by the familiar alley that has our fort tucked inside. It physically pains me to throw my clothes towards the dead end, but I offer them a reassuring, "I'll come back for you." And then I'm squeezing my eyes shut so I don't have to witness the sight of my beloved clothing plummeting towards the dirty cobblestone. Free from the bundle, I race down the street while mentally scolding myself for what I've done. Though, that doesn't stop me from scarfing down several bites of dough as I try to dwindle the amount of incriminating evidence. I turn down several streets, cutting through alleyways while attempting not to choke on my stolen goods. The Imperial is still on my heels when I skid around a corner and large arms wrap round my body, pulling me against a foreign one. My attempt to struggle is futile in comparison to the size of this someone behind me. I'm about to yell for anyone who might care enough to help when a hand suddenly clamps over my mouth, smelling of a sort of soot that stings my nose. I'm being pulled backwards, farther and farther until my captor collides with the wall and phases right through it, forcing me to do the same. I stumble on the other side of the brick, my feet fumbling beneath me. A muscled arm is lifting me off the floor before I can slip and fall face first into it. A large hand still covers my nose and mouth, and I'm desperately trying to free myself so I can spew every word that's being smothered. That's when I sneeze into the palm. Shit! My feet have only just returned to the floor before I'm being shoved away from the source of that deep voice, my nose still burning from the dust covering his hand. I take a deep breath before turning to face him, attempting to collect my thoughts and rein in my emotions. But it seems I do neither of those things, because I spin on my heel at the same moment I harshly whisper, "You're a phaser too?" If I had a single rational thought left, it vanishes when I lay eyes on him. If there is a God, this man is certainly proof that he has his favorites. He's breathtaking in the way I would imagine a stab wound to be. So handsome it's piercing. Like a blade, everything about him is sharp and cold. And suddenly, I have a vague sense of familiarity at the sight of him. Tipping my head up, my eyes find his dark ones before trailing down to the sharp cheekbones beneath them. I follow the curve of his Cupid's bow until my gaze traces the scars slicing through his lips. Everything below his face is hidden beneath thick, partially leathered clothing, though the sheer size of him is obvious. His dark sleeves are sloppily rolled to his elbow, displaying muscled arms streaked in the black dust that made me. "You sneezed in my hand." His arm is stretched out in front of him as he blinks down at his palm in disbelief. Well, my whole body flushes as I struggle to form words. "Your hand made me sneeze." "You don't say?" I hadn't noticed. He says this with a stony sort of sarcasm while running his palm down the side of his pants. I stiffen slightly at his tone. But at the reminder of my poor first impression, I force myself to smile in the hopes he will offer one back too. "So," I say slowly, drawing out the word, "you're a phaser?" With the hand unmarred by my sneeze, he combs long fingers through dark hair. It's parted and shaggy and likely long enough to partially tie back with a strap. But when he brushes the strands out of his face, I catch sight of a silver streak hiding amongst the rugged black waves. My heart stops at the sight, at the reminder of pay. "Was walking through the wall not proof enough of that?" he asks blandly, his eyes finally flicking to mine. I doubt I'll be getting so much as a smile anytime soon. Or a kind word for that matter. But that doesn't mean I can't try to earn one. "Sorry, I've just never met another phaser before." I smile despite the stony expression he wears. I mean, obviously, I knew there were others. I'm not special enough to be the only one, although, see, as incredibly interesting as wherever the hell you were going with that is, we need to get down to business. He pairs a solemn nod with what he likely thinks is a sympathetic look. "So, I'm going to go ahead and let you ask one more question before I dive into everything. I blink at him, temporarily dazed. Excuse me? He raises his eyebrows. Are you sure that's the question you want to ask? What business are you talking about? I sputter. What is going on? All right, that's 2 questions. So, pick which one you like more. We stare at each other. I can only imagine what Peyton might have done at this point, and it most definitely involves a dagger. But I choose a far less violent approach. Maybe I can annoy him out of my life. I take a deep breath before plastering a smile onto my face. Fine, I say sweetly. Could you stick your hand through the wall for me? I've just always wanted to see someone else do it. He lifts a hand to run it down his face. Honestly, I shouldn't even be surprised. I wait until he's walked towards the brick and stuck out a hand. Oh, wait. I giggle innocently while he takes his time turning towards me. Not that wall. No, I wanted you to stick your hand through that one. I point towards the bricks opposite him, earning a sarcastic grin from the nameless man I'm not sure I wish to see again. When he reaches my wall of choice, he turns to raise an eyebrow. Do you have a hand preference? Perhaps the one you sneezed on? No, that would be silly, I laugh lightly. His left hand reaches for the wall. On second thought, you're right one. He turns stiffly, barely containing his abundance of annoyance. Any other requests? Maybe stick my head through as well? A foot? I shake my head, smiling a bit too widely. Nope. He turns back towards the wall. Several heartbeats pound past in which he simply waits. After throwing a glance over his shoulder, he deems it safe to finally slide his hand through the wall. I watch it disappear onto the other side, smiling at the familiarity of it all. It's oddly comforting, finding someone with the same power running through their veins, no matter how rude they seem to be. After freeing his hand from the wall, he throws me a tired look. Satisfied? I cross my arms over my chest in an attempt to seem intimidating. And if I'm not, life is abundant with disappointment, I'm afraid. He strides back over to me, voice deep and tone dull. Now, it's time I tell you why I saved your ass. I pin him with a questioning look. Yes, I have been wondering that, because I'm getting the impression that it certainly wasn't out of the goodness of your heart. Obviously not. He crosses stained arms over his leathered chest. Speaking of, why the hell didn't you just phase into a building and lose the Imperial? With a sudden urge to defend myself, I lift my chin. Well, I never know what's waiting on the other side. I am then distracted by my dim surroundings, as though seeing them for the first time. We are standing in a crumbling building, deserted by everything but whatever creatures are likely crawling around. He stares at me for a stressful few seconds before stating, Odd. I can feel his eyes lingering over the length of me and would rather not know what it is he's seeing. Possibly the sweat dotting my brow, or, better yet, the mop of tangled hair falling from its already messy bun. I run my sticky hand down the side of my pants self-consciously, trying to rid it of the remaining honey clinging to my palm. When he finally looks away, his tone is suddenly serious. All right, I need your help. He all but rolls his eyes at the sight of my spreading smile. Sorry, could you say that one more time? I ask sweetly with a hand cupped around my ear. There's that mock sympathy seeping onto his features again. Not a chance. You're all out of questions, son. Taking a deep breath, he begins pacing absent-mindedly. You're a seamstress, yes? How do you know I'm... My words stop the moment my heart seems to do the same. I blink at him, his features suddenly shifting into something undeniably familiar. My gasp has him startling in surprise, pressing a hand over his heart. You! I know you! His eyes dart away from mine, guilty in the way they pointedly avoid my gaze. I thought you looked familiar. I blurt before poking an accusing finger into his chest. You're the one who shouted at me on the street. He shrugs nervously, scratching a hand against the back of his shaggy hair. I would prefer to call it constructive criticism, but I can see how, well, you criticized my favorite blouse, and I stand by what I said. It should have been red, I finished through my teeth. Yeah, I remember. He looks as though he might actually laugh. Well, have you sold it yet? I'm unable to look at him as I grumble. No, the customer agreed with you. He shuts his eyes, fighting some internal battle that has him blowing out a breath. How incredibly unfortunate for you that they had good taste. My teeth grind together, the feeling foreign and full of frustration. This man is, so far, slightly insufferable. I've never met someone so completely cold and condescending. It's impressive, really, his ability to ruffle even me. The thought suddenly has me setting my jaw along with a new goal for myself. I hereby refuse to give him the satisfaction of irritating me. And that is why I scare him with a wide smile as I say, So, why is it you need my help? It takes him a moment to recover from my sudden shift of emotion. Look, he sighs. Someone very important to me just got sent into the trials. His eyes search mine. You know exactly what that's like. How do you? I trail off, confusion crinkling my brow. How do you know that? I was out on the street when the coach pulled up to take the contestants to the castle. He clears his throat. I watched Hera climb in before the Silver Savior followed. And that is when I saw you, jumping and waving at her like she was your everything. That's because she is, I whisper. Well, I don't know about you, but I never got to say goodbye to my everything. He spits out the words as though they left a bitter taste in his mouth. Hera won't make it through these trials, and that is why I need your help. I pair a sympathetic look with a shake of my head. What could I possibly do? He steps towards me, swallowing the distance between us. I need to get into the castle and see her one last time. There's something I need to give her. The words tumble from his mouth, urgent and more earnest than anyone prior. I know it might sound crazy, but if you can make me look like an Imperial, I can phase through the walls and walk around the castle without fear of getting caught. My lips part as shock smothers every other emotion. You want me to disguise you as an Imperial? Do you have a better idea? He counters. I quickly come to the conclusion that I do not, in fact, have a better idea. Each of my hands finds a hip as I look up at him stubbornly. And why would I want to help you? You haven't exactly made a good first impression. I pause. Either of the times we've met. Well, my charm isn't for everyone, he sighs, lifting a hand to run his thumb over the scar splitting his lips. But I assure you, this would be mutually beneficial. I frown. How so? For starters, it's very clear that you need help. I'm about to object when he raises a sooty hand, stilling my tongue. Need I remind you of your little attempt at thievery just now? He tisks, giving me a disapproving shake of his head. I can offer you food, water, supplies, all of it. How incredibly tempting. Plague knows I won't last long without Peyton here to steal me sustenance. I shift on my feet. And what else? He ducks his head slightly, his gaze piercing. A chance to see your best friend again before it's too late. I bristle at his insinuation. Of course I'll see her again, when this is all over. His words are icy enough to send a chill down my spine. But what if you don't? I swallow, hating that I'm even considering his words. So, I would go with you to the palace. He nods slowly. And I would go see Peyton while you see Hera? Another nod. As far as I know, they should be staying in the same wing of the castle during the trials. Though, annoyingly, I have no idea where that might be. Which is why you want an Imperial uniform, so you can walk the halls freely while you search for the wing. I breathe quietly, nodding in understanding. Exactly. He extends a sooty hand, his lips tipping slightly in what might be considered a smile. Do we have a deal? My eyes flick up from his stained palm. You haven't asked me my name. He blows out a breath. Sorry, I was focused on more important details. At the flat look on my face, he grumbles. By all means, please grace me with the knowledge of your name. I'm on the edge of my seat. I smile brightly. I'm Adina. Thank you very much for asking. And what is your name? After shooting me a sarcastic smile, he begrudgingly answers, Call me Mac. Well, Mac. I reach out to accept his calloused handshake. You now have yourself a partner. Well, partner, we have to work quickly. There isn't much time before the trials begin.
Chapter 3. Makoto. I'm assuming you're hungry, considering that you risked it all for a sticky bun. Her jaw drops into a comical look of shock, eyes anywhere but the busy street before us. Before she can even say anything, I'm wrapping an arm round her shoulders, rolling my eyes, and tugging her out of a rumbling cart's path. Barely seeming to notice the inconvenience, the shocked expression doesn't budge from her face. How did you know I stole... She cuts herself off, looking around nervously as though an Imperial may pounce at the mention of such a heinous crime. It's only when she's deemed it safe that she whispers, How did you know I stole a sticky bun? There's still honey on your hand, I say dully. This has her tucking her arms behind her back, expression sheepish. And after seeing the Imperial chasing you, well, I'm brilliant enough to put two and two together. This all sounds very nonchalant, though the truth is nothing of the sort. I'd actually been watching her all morning and seen her pathetic attempt at theft. But I keep all of this to myself, of course, because I have a plan to carry out. A very stupid and slightly unhinged plan. Brilliant, huh? She asks, with a dubious arch of her eyebrow. Self-proclaimed. She hums. I see. We walk in silence, surrounded only by the commotion of the street. It's a blissful 8 seconds. Do you have a job? I glance sidelong at her cheery expression. Self-employed? This time, she lasts all of 6 seconds before speaking again. Any hobbies? Self-serving. I meet her gaze before more sarcasm can slide off my tongue, paired with the occasional self-loathing. Frustration tugs her lips into a frown, one she quickly smothers with one of her profoundly perky observations. Well, aren't you quite the conversationalist? I glance sidelong at her. Self-taught. The deep breath she takes is audible even over the constant bustle belonging to Lute. I almost smile, because I'm a horrible person who doesn't believe that anyone could possibly be so happy. And maybe she truly is, though it's likely because she hasn't yet gotten to know me. I might just crack her, seeing that I may be her worst nightmare, her opposite. And I'd be doing her a favor, really, widening her range of emotions. Get her to embrace any other feeling besides permanent, unbearable perkiness. Glancing over, I watch as she tilts her head towards the sky, skin glowing in the warm rays stroking her face. The light purple shirt she wears is falling down her arm, revealing a delicate collarbone and dark shoulder. My eyes trail over the black curls bouncing in time to each of her steps. Wind-blown bangs bleed into hazel eyes, bright with a sort of serenity that doesn't belong in the slums. There is not a single cynical thought to deny the fact that she may be the most beautiful woman I've ever had the pleasure of laying eyes on. She's intimidatingly peaceful, a contradiction in itself, and I almost want to despise her for it, because I fear there is a chance that I may begin to enjoy her. So, she draws out the word, giving me enough time to stop staring at her before I'm caught in the act. Where is it you're taking me? Somewhere that will likely have you sneezing all over me. Blandly, I add, so I'll be keeping my distance. She shrugs. So long as you're close enough to keep me company. This, unfortunately, piques my interest. I don't remember that being a part of the deal. She looks at me as though this is common knowledge. That's because it is a part of the deal that is knowing me. Do you come with any other rules I should be made aware of? The expression she wears is the embodiment of a shrug. I don't like carrots, so none of those, please. She taps a thin finger against her lips, as though pondering something of far greater importance than our current topic. Oh, and I get scared very easily when I'm focused on my sewing, so don't sneak up on me or anything. I may poke you with a needle, so consider yourself warned. Noted, I sigh. Any other demands? A mischievous grin pulls at her lips. I expect a sticky bun every day, for my hard work, of course. I run my eyes over the length of her lean frame. Well, that's one way to get some meat on your bones. Turning my attention back towards the crowded street, I'm forced to dodge several carts along with the scrambling children weaving between them, which, in turn, means I'm also guiding an alarmingly oblivious Adina. What are you looking at? My tone is accusing, because it certainly isn't the street in front of you. She smiles slightly at our surroundings. We clearly see the world quite differently. See the world however you'd like, but at least watch your step while you do it. I pause long enough to take in my own words. Then I'm glancing over at her with a surprised quirk of my brow. That was good advice. You should write that down. She laughs, though I'm certain it is at my expense. Nevertheless, I still get to enjoy the sound of it washing over me. Yes, very wise. I nod in the direction of a merchant and his cart of colorful fabric. How much do you need for the uniform? Couple of yards? I'm heading for the display of dizzying colors when a hand clamps round my bicep. What do you think you're doing? She blurts, exasperated. I need to get your measurements before any fabric can be bought. You can't be serious, I say dryly. Why don't we get some now and then? We are doing this my way, Mac. Her sudden sternness is almost startling. Or not at all. I raise a palm in mock surrender. Fine. I'm shocked you could stop smiling long enough to tell me off. She smiles at that, further proving my point. After several more steps down the street, I nod towards the alley on our right. This way. She follows me closely, like a too-short shadow attached to my heels. I lead her down the alley, stalling outside one of the many shop doors surrounded by crumbling brick. After fishing a key from a pocket decorating my leathers, so begins the routine of forcing the toothed iron into the lock. It's only after me ramming my shoulder against the wood that the door swings open on squealing, rusty hinges. I brace an arm against it, gesturing for her to step inside. After she's offered me a quick smile, I watch her take in the entirety of my life with a single sweep of her eyes. She paces around what can generously be described as a glorified shed. It's odd, watching someone take in the mess that is me. She runs her fingers along the various tools and metal carelessly cast about the room. A thin layer of coal dust coats anything in the vicinity of the massive fireplace, staining half the room in grime. My whole life takes place in this small amount of space. On one half of it all, I make a living as a blacksmith. But a messy bed lies on the other side, accompanied by several mismatching cabinets filled with whatever clothing and food I happen to have. She seems to shy away from that intimate part of the room, though I watch her gaze linger on the crumpled covers of my bed. Her eyes stray back to the assortment of weapons lining the walls, before poking at the large anvil beside the fireplace. "You're a blacksmith." I cross my arms over my chest. "How incredibly observant you are." Ignoring my comment, she asks, "Who do you sell these weapons to?" I shrug. "Whoever is smart enough to want one." I'm met with a questioning look, urging me to elaborate. "Everyone in the slums should have a way to defend themselves. It's survival of the fittest." Her eyes are locked on the several shelves of weapons. "I guess I've never seen loot that way." She frowns solemnly. "It's always felt like a home." I swallow. Homes tend to hurt you the most. At that, she's quiet for a surprisingly long moment. That is, until she's not. "So, you just hand someone whatever weapon they want?" I lean against a wall, watching her take in my handiwork. "Well, they typically ask me to teach them how to use whatever weapon they choose." She turns to face me with a shocked smile. "And you help them?" "Don't act so surprised." "Sorry," she laughs defensively. "It's just that I thought you didn't have any goodness in your heart to give." "Well, not to you," I scoff. "I'm not wasting any of my goodness on someone who clearly already has an abundance." She laughs again, and though that wasn't my intention, I'm not complaining about the outcome. "I'll take that as a compliment." "Of course you will," I mutter before pushing off the wall to stride towards her. She tilts her head up to meet my gaze. "Ready to get your measurements taken?" "Do I have a choice?" She beams. "Nope." Her eyes scan the room in search of something before she finally asks, "Do you have a measuring tape?" After tearing through my cluttered cabinets, I happen to find the rolled tape I stowed away. Adina makes quick work of unraveling it before I'm being ushered into the center of the room. When she clears her throat, I look down at her in question. Her eyes shift uncomfortably. "I'm going to need you to take your shirt off." Before I can even open my mouth, she's rambling rapidly. "See, I can't get a true measurement with all the pockets on your clothes. I mean, you can keep your pants on because the ones Imperials wear are loose as it is, so it's really just the shirt that needs to come off, unless you don't want to, of course." "This is not worth a 10-minute explanation," I sigh, while pulling the shirt from my body in one swift movement. It slides easily over my head, considering it's mostly made of a spandex material with a protective leather panel down the front. I throw the shirt to the floor, watching her eyes follow the movement as she thoroughly avoids the sight of my bare chest. She squints down at the crumpled fabric before bending to run her fingers over it. "The leather prevents most of the sparks from burning your skin?" When I nod in agreement to her observation, she adds softly, "But the rest remains breathable enough to wear beside the fire." "And the pockets are just convenient for miscellaneous tools," I add simply. A small smile curves her lips. "Reminds me of something I made for pay, except the pockets were for stolen goods." We're quiet for several slow heartbeats. All right, stretch out your arms for me, please. I reluctantly obey, standing before her with a bare chest and arms outstretched. She's quick to run the measuring tape along the length of each limb, jotting the measurements down on a scrap of paper she scavenged. Her eyes dart over my body, never straying too long on any patch of skin in particular. But I don't miss the bob of her throat, the brush of her fingers, which are incredibly cold. She smells of honey, of happiness incarnate, and it's entirely too distracting. She then reaches her arms behind my back, encircling the tape round my chest. "Don't mind me," she mumbles awkwardly, her breath warm on my skin. After reading the measurement and proceeding to jot it down, she looks up with a comical look of concern. "Well, someone is not eating their sticky buns." I give her a flat look. "Well, someone has been eating or stealing them all before I can get one." "I certainly hope you're not accusing me." Her eyes are wide, her frown impressive. "Trust me, I would love to eat loot out of their supply of sticky buns." She looks me up and down, coming to a profound conclusion. "Now it makes sense why you're so grumpy." Ah, yes. My voice is dull. My lack of ingested sticky buns. You finally figured it out. But her attention is back on the crumpled paper in her hand. "Okay, get me 5.5 yards of white fabric, just to be safe. You're much taller than my typical model, which would be pay." She shoves the parchment into my palm. "Oh, and don't get the cheap fabric that unravels. This needs to look real, so get polyester." I blink as though that is question enough. "And why aren't you coming with me?" "Because," she says slowly, her tone suggesting this is obvious, "I have things to prepare, and a pre-sewing ritual, if you will." I suddenly feel a pounding headache coming on. Of course you do. I quickly pull on my shirt before walking towards the door. "Don't break anything." Her shout follows me out into the alley. "Only if you get me a new needle."
Chapter 4. Adina. I'm snooping. A dangerous concoction of boredom and curiosity made me do it. After organizing my notes and calculating measurements, there was nothing left to do but poke around the messy collection of Mac's life. I avoid the more personal side of the shop he lives in, though I study the bed and cabinets from afar. Oddly enough, it's his impressive assortment of weapons that intrigues me the most. I'm causing quite the commotion, clanking steel together and running my hands over everything in sight. And then I gasp. And that gasp is followed by a very unpleasant stinging. Blood pools in my palm. A crooked slice mars the center of my hand, spilling scarlet across my skin. The culprit lies on one of the many shelves straining beneath the weight of countless tools, its sharp blade buried harmlessly among them. I've barely held a dagger, let alone been sliced open by one. In fact, the most I've ever interacted with the blade has been when I hand paid in hers. I'm considering dashing out the door and fleeing the kingdom. I haven't known Mac for long, but I do know that he will hardly be sympathetic. He'll likely mock and... The door swings open, as though I've summoned him with my stupidity. I don't know what polyester is, but this shit better be that because it sure as hell wasn't cheap. I spin to face him, pushing my bloody hand behind my back. Tugging on a smile, I glance at the white bundle in his arms. Without warning, he's suddenly striding towards me, swallowing the space between us. "Go on," he nods down to the fabric. "Make sure this is what you wanted." Swallowing, I pull the uninjured hand from behind my back while trying to ignore the biting sting of the other. Within one heartbeat, my fingers hover above the fabric. And in the next, his hand is clamped round my wrist, halting the movement. What did you do? His voice is even, deliberate. I can feel my eyes widen with guilt. What are you talking about?
To keep listening to this audiobook, I've left you a link in the description so you can do it, at no cost thanks to Audible's 30-day free trial.